The town of Silver Creek was small, the kind where everyone knew each other's name and every secret carried on the wind. And for young Sarah, just 8 years old, that secret was heavy as lead that she had no father. While the other children boasted of their papas teaching them to ride horses, shoot rifles, or mend saddles, Sarah walked home alone with her mother Mary, clutching her hand tightly as cruel whispers trailed behind her. Words like bastard and no daddy's girl that cut sharper than knives. Mary, a widow in all but name, had been abandoned by the man who had promised her forever, left to raise her child on scraps of work and the kindness of neighbors. She carried her shame silently, her chin always high though her heart was weary. But the sight of her daughter's downcast eyes each day after school nearly broke her. One afternoon, after Sarah was shoved in the dirt by a sneering boy who mocked, "No one wants you, you don't even got a pa," Mary pulled her child into her arms, tears burning her cheeks as Sarah whispered, "Mama, why don't I have a father like the others?" And though Mary tried to find the words, her silence only deepened her daughter's wound. For in that silence lay the truth that love had failed them once, and the world had not let them forget it. It was on one of those heavy days that a stranger rode into Silver Creek, his horse dusty from miles of trail. His broad shoulders bowed beneath the weight of both sun and memory. His name was Daniel Cole, a cowboy known in whispers as a man of few words, but many scars. A rancher who had lived alone since burying his brother years before, carrying solitude like a second skin. When he came into town for supplies, his path crossed with Mary's outside the general store, where Sarah clung to her mother's skirt, her dress torn at the hem, her face still smudged from the earlier fight. Daniel paused, tipping his hat with quiet respect, but what caught his breath was the look in the little girl's eyes, so full of sorrow, yet so fierce, as though she carried storms too heavy for her tiny frame. When the storekeeper muttered something cruel under his breath about Mary's unfortunate situation, Daniel's jaw tightened, and in a rare spark of temper he growled, "That's no way to speak of a lady doing her best." His voice low, his gaze sharp as steel, silencing the whispers in an instant. Mary looked at him then, startled by his defense, and though she tried to brush it off, Daniel's steady eyes lingered, a quiet promise in their depths that unsettled her heart, for she had learned long ago not to trust a man's kindness. Yet something about this cowboy felt different, as though he wasn't offering pity but respect. In the weeks that followed, Daniel found himself drawn to Mary and Sarah, though he never quite understood why. Perhaps it was the way Mary worked from dawn until dusk, sewing clothes for neighbors and baking bread to keep food on the table, her shoulders strong though her spirit was tired. Or perhaps it was the way Sarah tried to act braver than her years, stubbornly refusing help even when her little arms shook under the weight of a water pail. Slowly, he began to appear, fixing a fence post outside Mary's small cottage without being asked, leaving a basket of eggs on the porch with no note, teaching Sarah how to whistle for the first time as she giggled with a joy that had been missing for too long. At first Mary resisted, suspicious of his presence, but Daniel never pressed, never demanded, never hinted at anything more than what he freely gave: time, care, and protection. And though she tried to hide her gratitude, there were nights she wept silently, knowing that for the first time since her daughter's birth, someone had stepped into their lives not to take, but to give. For Sarah, the bond was simpler each time Daniel lifted her onto his horse. Each time he taught her how to hold the reins. She began to look at him not as a stranger but as something more, something she had longed for in secret, but never dared to speak aloud. A father. It was during the town's spring fair, when children raced and played on the green, that Sarah's wound was torn open once more. She had joined a game of tag, her laughter ringing out, until one cruel boy pointed at her and shouted before the crowd, "You ain't got no pa. Nobody wants a girl like you." And though Sarah tried to hide it, her small shoulders shook as tears welled in her eyes, the old pain rushing back. The crowd fell silent, some pitying, some smirking, but before Mary could reach her, Daniel was already there. He knelt in the dust before Sarah, his strong hands steady as he lifted her chin, his voice clear enough for the whole town to hear. "Don't you ever believe you ain't wanted. Little one, you hear me? You have a father now." The words stunned everyone, but most of all Mary. who covered her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. Sarah blinked in disbelief, her lips trembling as she whispered, "I do." And Daniel, with eyes fierce yet tender, nodded slowly, "From this day forward, you do. I'll be that man, if you'll have me." And in that instant, the whispers of shame that had haunted the girl crumbled to dust, replaced by the solid truth of a cowboy's vow, spoken not out of pity but out of love. From that day, everything changed. No longer did Sarah walk with her head bowed, for she knew when cruel whispers rose, her father's shadow stood behind her, steady and strong. Daniel kept his word, becoming the man who tucked her into bed, who taught her to fish in the creek, who stood at Mary's side through every trial. And though Mary at first feared it was too good to be true, she soon saw that his devotion was not fleeting. He mended the roof with his own hands. He sang softly to Sarah when storms scared her. And he looked at Mary not with pity, but with a love that burned steady as the western sun. One quiet evening, beneath the endless sky, Daniel finally spoke the words he had carried in his heart, telling Mary that he didn't just want to be Sarah's father, he wanted to be her husband, her partner, her forever. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Mary whispered yes, and together they built a home not out of riches or perfection, but out of love chosen freely. And so the story spread through Silver Creek, not of shame or mockery, but of a cowboy who knelt in the dust and gave a little girl the greatest gift she could ever receive: a father's love, a family's bond, and a place to belong. And friends, if this story moved your heart and reminded you of the power of love, loyalty, and second chances, then don't ride off just yet. Hit that subscribe button and join us for more Wild West stories, where every sunset carries another legend worth telling.